I honestly wish I could have gotten this video out sooner, but I've been buried in work. I'm finally in the home stretch of the first part of my thesis. Actually, my thesis defense is on February 23rd. After that, I'll be starting the next phase early next year. I'm really crossing my fingers that the author doesn't drop any more chapters in the coming days, but hey, we don't always get what we want. Anyway, putting my third world struggles aside, today's episode was short but intense. I truly think it's the one with the biggest implications and revelations so far, considering everything it brings to the table. It hit me especially hard because I just recently finished narrating all the side stories related to Crush's camp. So, seeing her regain her memories in the middle of a fight with Felix, right after stepping on those roses, which serve as an allegory for her beloved Fourier, was just incredibly moving. Before we move on, I want to give a huge shout out to my channel members. Views in January and February have been a bit on the lower side, but your support has provided me with a solid financial safety net, not just for me, but for my editors as well. Even though I'm a small YouTuber, I do my absolute best to make sure the people who help me get paid fairly. None of this would be possible without the revenue from views, donations, and memberships. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome to my analysis of the Arc 10 Interlude. To really understand this chapter, it is absolutely essential, and I mean essential, that you read EX1. It's a nearly 200-page novel focused entirely on Prince Fourier, Crush, and Felix. Now, I know I've made some shorts about them, but the stories in those shorts are not in EX1. They come from separate side stories. Think of EX1 as a secondary novel, while the stories I've narrated are more like tertiary novels that are also canon. Anyway, if you're short on time, I'd tell you to at least read EX1 to get a feel for the bond between these three best friends. But let's be real, you're not going to read it. Your brain is basically fried from TikTok, and unless I slap some Subway Surfers gameplay in the background, your attention span is non-existent. You wouldn't be able to focus long enough to actually enjoy or get immersed in the story. I would have loved to narrate the entire novel using my character Gifs, but unfortunately, it's so long that I just can't keep up with the editing workload by myself. That being said, I have a proposal for you guys regarding this at the end of the video. But before we jump back into today's interlude, let's set the mood. I'm going to play one of my recent shorts about the prince's final day.
It all started out of nowhere one day. First, it was just a little cough, then a general feeling of being unwell. Before he knew it, the prince was already coughing up blood. But because of Crush's temporary kidnapping and the issues going on with Felix's family, he acted like it wasn't a big deal. Now, we're going to touch on one of the deepest emotional wounds in Re:Zero, one the anime barely mentioned, but that completely defined two major characters in the franchise. Fourier knew, he felt, that he was dying. His body, once overflowing with vitality, was shutting down due to an unknown illness that affected only the royal family. Despite that, he tried to act strong, at least until he couldn't anymore and was bedridden. At the same time he fell ill, his entire family contracted the disease. This meant House Karsten, Crush's home, had to pick up the slack for the royal family. The newly ascended Duchess found herself swamped with work overnight. She was burdened with obligations just as the prince fell ill. But that wasn't the worst part. Felix was also tied up due to the deaths of his remaining relatives. When Felix was finally able to see the prince, he realized just how bad shape he was in. Unable to cure him, he lamented his powerlessness as a healer. So, he told the prince that when he died, he would revive him using that spell created by a witch, the one the Argyle family knows. Fourier asked him to let him decide when his life ended, and it would be ending soon. Instead, he asked Felix to keep saving the people of the kingdom with his water magic and to never forget to remain Crush's knight. He added that it had been fun knowing him. On his last day alive, Crush sneaked into his room, but the dying prince still detected her. He asked her to go with him to the garden where they first met. At that point, the prince was so weak that Crush had to carry him on her back to get him there. There, Fourier asked if she remembered the first time they met. Crush said yes, that he had fallen from the sky while she was admiring the flowers. The prince barely managed a smile and told her she was wrong. He revealed he had actually seen her long before that moment, and from the second he saw her, his heart started racing, his cheeks flushed, and he couldn't take his eyes off her. The girl was surprised, but the prince told her he was about to surprise her even more. He then proceeded to tell her the plans he had for the future. He planned to make her his queen, and he would have Felix be the knight. Then he added that, because of his personality, he surely caused a lot of trouble for both of them. She told him he was never a problem. The prince then asked if he had managed to become a lion king worthy of her devotion. Crush remembered how, as a child, the prince told her he would become exactly that kind of figure. It said her breath hitched, and the prince, with the little strength he had left, raised his hand and wiped the path of Crush's tears. He turned to her one last time to say, "I love you." Or, that's what he was going to say, but he couldn't finish the sentence. In that instant, the cold wind tugged at both of their hair. Seeing that the prince no longer responded, and feeling Fourier's body grow heavier against her, Crush simply whispered that she would have loved to see the future that he dreamed of.
Thanks to today's short, I finally realized that the intro to episode 2 of the current arc was actually Crush thinking about the prince. I highly recommend revisiting that intro before diving into today's chapter. It'll give you so much more context. Anyway, today's section reveals Crush's POV during her very first encounter with the prince. Honestly, I loved this part. We already knew the prince's perspective from his novel, but now we finally get to see things through Crush's eyes. What's most fascinating are her reflections on personal growth. She feels that the maturity the world expects of her doesn't line up with the person she actually wants to become. Crush was always different. She was a young woman who lived for the sword and had a personality that wasn't exactly feminine by noble standards. Yet society still pressured her to act the part. There were even nasty rumors saying she should have been born a man. I'm not just making this up either. These are themes explicitly explored in her novel. And while she eventually overcomes this thanks to Felix, the version of Crush we see in today's flashback is a younger self who hadn't even met your favorite femboy yet. And right as she was lost in those thoughts, the prince literally dropped from the sky. That's how their first conversation started, but you'll have to read EX1 to find out what they actually talked about. After the flashback, Crush wakes up and feels this inexplicable, insatiable thirst. It's described as being so extreme that she actually starts drinking the water from the flower vases nearby. Later on, it's mentioned that some of her limbs were completely dried out, which I guess explains the thirst physically. But something tells me there's more to it. A deeper reason we'll eventually uncover. Actually, the novel describes this scene so vividly and intensely that it's exactly where I got the idea for that meme. Sorry, Crush fans, but at the risk of sounding like a total lore nerd, I really loved the emphasis the novel puts on Crush trampling over the flowers and hurting herself in her desperate scramble for water. I say I liked it because, since the start of Fourier's flashback, we've seen how much those palace garden flowers meant to her. That's where she met the last prince. Plus, the prince died in that very same spot. Flowers are a recurring theme in Crush's life, so having the novel emphasize her waking up and walking over crushed flowers while she's covered in blood, I can't help but feel it's a prelude to a major revelation. The shed blood basically represents every wound Crush has suffered on her path to the throne, a path that today's episode reveals she started because of Fourier, seeing flowers scattered along the trail she leaves behind. Yeah, I can't unsee the symbolism there. Let me know in the comments if you think my interpretation is on point, or if I'm just tripping because of my thesis. Then Wilhelm shows up and has to manually calm her down, telling her to relax and that he'll bring her water soon. From this point on, the novel starts describing something peculiar. It talks about how her body begins to remember things. Her strikes become more and more lethal, but old man Wilhelm is, quite simply, just stronger than her. This was a clear hint that Crush was about to regain her memories. At least that's how I read it, because the text starts using very specific language about recovering memories from that moment on. Then, as soon as she notices the black patches on her body, she starts screaming for Felix. What's interesting is that the author notes she screamed with every ounce of strength she had. She was truly devastated. It's even emphasized that she would have preferred to die rather than be defiled by that black pattern. Finally, your favorite femboy arrives. He calms her down and manages to soothe her without using any force. He removes her bandages and shows her that the spots sullying her body are gone. Then he reveals the truth. It wasn't him who healed her, but actually the Divine Dragon Church. A quick side note. The story mentions that Felix hasn't just been sitting around moping this whole time because he couldn't heal Crush. He's actually been making massive breakthroughs in healing magic. But even with all that progress, he still couldn't heal her. Back to the main point. As soon as Felix mentions it was the church that healed her, Crush regains all her memories of Fourier and everything she suffered for him. I really loved how the main novel references the conclusions of EX1. See, one of the main reasons Crush wants to end the Dragon's Pact is because of something that happened right when Fourier died, which is why she feels so betrayed by Felix. Today's chapter explains those reasons, but only on the surface. So, I've taken the liberty of narrating the excerpt from EX1 where Crush officially decides to cut all ties with the nation's dragon.
The true cruelty of it all was how Fourier Lugunica's death was treated as a mere afterthought compared to the passing of King Randahal. The assembly was all that remained, a room cloaked in deep depression now that their worst nightmares had come to life. Crush, for her part, was drowning in a hollow sense of loss. Fourier had been such a vital part of her life that losing him felt like having half of her own body torn away. Even now, if she closed her eyes, she could see his final smile. The image of the prince taking his last breath was seared into her mind. In the end, the feelings he never got to confess had simply vanished into thin air. Miklatov was the first to break the heavy silence. He reminded everyone that they couldn't just sit there mourning forever. The old sage looked at the dejected nobles, trying to rally their spirits. Someone in the crowd spoke up in agreement, claiming it wasn't the time for such sorrow and that His late Majesty would hate to see them like this. A chorus of nods followed, and the sentiment spread. Crush had no choice but to look up and force a smile. Staying there with her head bowed felt like the ultimate betrayal of what Fourier would have wanted. She remembered him, his smiling face and the way he always tried to look on the bright side. However, that image in her mind shattered the moment it was declared that the royal bloodline had ended. With the Dragon's Pact broken, they claimed there could be no greater tragedy for the kingdom of Lugunica. Krush looked up, doubting her own ears, as a man in front of her clutched his head in desperation. He wailed about how the entire royal family could just vanish and what the dragon would do about it. He feared the loss of the pact would lead to a national catastrophe, especially since relations with the Empire and the Holy Kingdom were at an all-time low. Krush was confused. What were they even talking about? Another official brought up the issue of the preserved dragon's blood, suggesting that since the dragon might demand it back, they should beat him to the punch and use it first. Krush just stared blankly as she listened to their deliberations. Everything they said kept circling back to the same question. What would the dragon do now that the royals were extinct? While she knew as well as anyone that the kingdom relied on the creature's blessing, and she couldn't help but wonder if that was really the first thing they should be mourning. She could have understood if they wanted to debate the future of the kingdom or foreign negotiations, but the fact that their priority was how to manipulate the dragon filled her with pure disgust. She realized then that none of these people were actually sad about the end of the royal line. They were just terrified of the consequences, scared that the dragon would abandon them. To them, Fourier's death was nothing more than a footnote. The most terrifying part for Krush was realizing that had she not been so close to him, she would likely be harboring those same fears. She would have had a soul just as shallow as theirs. That way of living repulsed her more than anything, casting a dark shadow over her heart.
It's because of the way the Council of Sages just brushed off Fourier's death that Krush is so bitter about the kingdom's complacency toward the Dragon's Pact. Knowing this, I really want you guys to go back and rewatch Krush's speech in episode 13. Honestly, you're going to see that moment in a completely different light. I'd play the clip right here, but let's be real. YouTube would hit me with a copyright strike in a heartbeat. But before we move on, let me narrate another brief moment from EX1, specifically an oath that ties directly into what happens next.
When Ferris first heard about the royal selection and that Krush had been chosen, he searched every inch of the castle until he found her in the garden. Seeing her there, standing among the flowers, she looked so fragile that he hesitated to even call out her name. This was the place where she had spent her final moments with Fourier. It was the most sacred corner of her heart, a place where not even Ferris felt he belonged. He felt the sting of his own helplessness, like a cold blade pressing into his chest, aching to run to her, hold her, and cast some kind of spell that could finally heal her soul. Without turning around, Krush sensed him there and congratulated him on finding her. Ferris could only bite his lip, swallowed by his own sense of powerlessness. As the wind caught her long hair, the Ferris brought up the rumours of the dragon tablet and her status as a candidate for the throne. Krush confirmed it. It seemed the dragon had indeed looked upon her with favour. The news shook Ferris to his core. It felt as if destiny were a series of relentless blows. The death of his parents, the loss of Fourier, and now his lady being swept into the royal selection, stripping away any sense of stability he had left. With a trembling voice, feeling like a vessel far too small for such an overflow of emotion, Ferris asked what he could do for her, admitting he was lost. Before he could flee the garden in anguish, Krush commanded him to look at her. When he raised his eyes, he was met by her amber gaze, a magic that captivated him instantly. Right then and there, she made a vow to him before anyone else, her unwavering intent to become king. Faced with such absolute conviction, Ferris was left breathless. In a soft voice, Krush began to reminisce about meeting Fourier in that very garden and how they used to watch the flowers together. She confessed a secret she'd never told him. Before meeting the prince, she always wore her hair tied up, but she started wearing just a simple ribbon because he had urged her to be true to herself. That choice, which was the origin of the white ribbons Ferris wore in his own hair, was a gift that started with the prince. As she shared these memories, Ferris felt their pasts weave into a shared bond, leaving him caught between a flood of tears and a smile. Crush assured him that she cherished the time the three of them spent together more than anything. But then, with a fire in her eyes, she added that the dragon's existence undermined that precious time. To the world, Fourier only existed to maintain the pact. They didn't truly mourn the man, only the vessel. Seeing her indignation, Ferris tensed. She reaffirmed that Fourier Lugunica had truly lived, and that he was etched into both of their hearts. Touching her own chest, and then Ferris's, she sparked a determination so fierce it could burn away any doubt. She swore she would never let anyone deny the existence of the man who was her Lion King. Crush reflected on how the Dragon's Pact had protected the people for so long that it had dulled their hearts, making them capable of ignoring the death of a kind young man. She claimed that because the kingdom had become dependent and subservient to the creature, yet only she could fulfill the dream the prince still kept alive within her. She argued that no other ruler would dare to correct this crooked path, and therefore the task fell to them. Handing him a dagger engraved with the symbol of the Lion King, a Carsten family heirloom, Crush explained that Fourier's dream was for the three of them to build the future together. Feeling the weight of the steel, Ferris finally understood her resolve. There, in the place Fourier loved most, Crush vowed to make him her knight. Ferris knelt in silence and offered the dagger. She took it and performed the ritual, tapping his left shoulder, then his right, with the flat of the blade before returning it to him. That day, in a garden where only the flowers bore witness, a knighthood was bestowed, marking both a new beginning and the continuation of a dream. Finally, Crush urged Ferris to follow her, to reclaim the kingdom from the dragon's hands, and make the prince's wish a reality. Without a second thought, Ferris joined her side. The first of the candidates, bound forever to her servant, walked away with pride, while in the breeze a small bud waited for the perfect moment to bloom.
In the present, Crush truly wants to thank her knight for saving her life and for everything he's endured. After all, her amnesiac self saw firsthand how much he suffered while taking care of her and trying to find a cure. But her sense of loyalty to Fourier and his ideals simply won't let her say the words. Instead of a thank you, she demands to know why he betrayed the promise he made to Fourier, telling him point blank that she would have preferred to die rather than betray that person. I honestly loved this ending. This scene is peak parallel storytelling. It's so similar to Subaru making a total fool of himself at the royal selection in front of his candidate. Except this time, the one making a fool of himself is Felix. Just between us, this is something I already saw coming. Felix is essentially Arc 3 Subaru, but without the character development yet. Just like Subaru idealized Emilia at that point in the story, Felix is doing the exact same thing with Crush, and he hasn't realized yet that it's a problem. I'm calling it now. The fallout from this situation is what's going to finally force him to grow. But man, Crush getting her memories back has my Peruvian brain running wild with theories. First off, why did her memories return? Some might say it was Filore's spell, but I think it's too early to call that the definitive answer, especially since not everyone is convinced that Roy is actually dead. Personally, I find it hard to believe Filore was the sole reason. I attribute it to one of two things. Either Roy's unlikely death triggered the return, or someone forced Roy to spit out Crush's memories right as Filore was healing her. That would explain how Roy could still be alive while Crush gets her memories back. Now some might argue I'm wrong because Crush was eaten by Lei, not Roy. But it's established that the Gluttony siblings share a stomach. When Lei died, part of his persona transferred to his brother Roy, so it's not a stretch to think Crush's memories did too. I mean, Rem was also eaten by Lei, but it was Roy who ended up spitting out her memories in that failed loop, so I don't think I'm too far off here. Plus, if Roy is still alive, it would explain why only Crush's memories returned and not Rem's. They simply ejected the candidate's memories and kept the maid's. Of course, if it's later confirmed that Roy is 100% dead, it's going to be a bit weird why the maid's memories didn't come back too. But hey, that'll be Tappy's job to figure out, and then it'll be future Conejotako's job to explain the author's explanation. If you're wondering why I didn't include Rui Arneb in this theory, it's because Arc 9 confirms that Roy can no longer feel the connection to his sister. I believe that the moment Rui materialized in the real world was the moment she lost that link to her brothers. However, losing the connection doesn't stop her from using the techniques she already consumed, which is why she can still use the skills she learned from her past victims. I hope we get more answers soon, and I really apologize for the delay, but just as this chapter dropped, I had a thesis deadline that I couldn't ignore. Today, Monday, as I'm writing this, I had to present my progress and handle a ton of corrections. So you can imagine I've been buried in work before I could finally sit down and script this for you guys. Before we wrap up, I have a big announcement to make. Do you remember the video I did narrating the end of Volume 31? You know, the Colosseum escape that ended up being nearly 2 hours long? That project took almost a month of non-stop work. Writing, recording, hunting for assets, and editing every single second by myself, and in 2 languages to boot. Why am I bringing this up? Because I'm about to do it again. I've decided to fully narrate EX1. For those who don't know, it's a 195-page novel and the definitive story of Crush and Fourier. I know I've covered some of their stories before, but trust me, those were just side stories to the main event. What I'm about to narrate is content you haven't seen on this channel yet. Narrating a 200-page novel is a titanic undertaking, and while I have editors helping me now, I actually have to pay them. For some reason, people seem to think editing is free. To be clear, I still edit my own videos, but the only way I can keep this much content coming is by having a team working on some projects while I handle others. And no, I don't use AI to make my videos. I've seen the comments. I only use AI for the English voiceovers or specific multimedia assets I can't get elsewhere. I'm not going to pretend I'm some anti-AI crusader, because I do use it for very specific tasks. But let's get back to the point. While the editors are working on EX1, I won't be sitting idly by. I'll be jumping back into my cut content series, but only after I finish the script for EX1. Even though I have an editor, he doesn't write the scripts. He doesn't write the words you're hearing right now. He only starts his magic after I've handed over all the materials. Since EX1 is nearly 200 pages, I estimate the condensed script alone will be about 40 to 50 pages long. How do I know? Because when I narrated the end of Volume 31, it was roughly the same length, and that script clocked in at over 40 pages. I'm showing you the writing logs and the timeline on screen right now so you can see I'm not exaggerating. Feel free to pause if you want to check the receipts. On top of that, I'm commissioning custom gifs for every character in EX1. Crush, Felix, and Fourier are the leads, but they aren't alone. I need to get animations for characters like Tyrrhena, the Gusteko noble who almost became Fourier's fiancé, and Miles, that Wallachian spy whose role to pay later connects to Arc 7. Mark my words, Miles is going to be pretty relevant in Season 5. I'll even be animating Felix's parents since they show up quite a bit. The same editors who have been handling my shorts will be the ones taking on the EX1 video. Because of that, you can expect that same snappy, high-energy editing style you've seen across both channels lately, just applied to a full-length feature. Now let's talk numbers. If my editors charge me around $40 for a 20-minute video, imagine the cost for a 120-minute feature. They start as soon as I hand over that 50-page script, and I think we can all agree that writing a 50-page script is a massive grind. Plus, there's the cost of the animations and the English translation. That's why I'm asking for your help to fund this project. I asked around for advice on how to organize this, and everyone told me to set a goal and only start once it was met. That makes sense, but I've decided to go with the Conejotako method, which is basically the idiot's method. I'm setting an open-ended donation goal starting today until the day the video drops, which I estimate will be in about 2 months. I know it seems like a long time, but keep in mind that I won't be finished with my thesis until the end of February. From that point on, I'm going to dive straight into writing the 50-page script for EX1, which I expect will take me about 1 or 2 weeks to get fully polished. Once the script is ready, I'll record my lines and send the audio in both English and Spanish over to the editor so they can start piecing the video together. After talking it over with them, they told me the video should be ready in about a month. I'm starting from the moment they receive the script, my audio files, and my specific editing directions. Because let's be real, guys, it's not like I just check out or wash my hands of the video the second I hand over the script. I'm constantly in there correcting things or asking for new additions. Since the editors don't know the Re-Zero lore like I do, it's inevitable that they'll trip up on certain situations or references, and that's exactly where I have to step in to make sure everything is 100% accurate. And just so you know, while the editors are grinding away on the video, I won't be sitting around doing nothing. I'm going to keep up with the channel's usual rhythm, doing streams, making shorts, uploading regular videos, and getting back to the cut content series. Basically, I'll still be putting in the work on my end while delegating the heavy lifting of the EX1 edit. I know it seems like a long time, but again, please remember that this is a nearly 2-hour video with a high level of production. It's not a 10 or 15-minute video with basic editing like my usual episode analyses. I need you to listen closely to what I'm about to say. Until the video is actually published, I will be covering all the expenses myself. That means I'll be paying for everything this project requires out of my own pocket. And in the worst-case scenario where nobody donates a single cent, it's fine. I'll pay for it all. I'm saying this so no one claims I'm holding the video hostage or asking for money as a condition to release it. It's not like that. I'm simply leaving the option open for anyone who wants to collaborate toward this goal and help me at least offset the costs of paying the team, like the editors and animators, who definitely deserve to be compensated for their time. I mean, would any of you give up an entire month of your time for free? I'll say it again. In the worst case scenario where no one donates, I'll handle the bill, but if you have the means and the ability, I'd truly appreciate any support you can give to help make this video for the community. And who knows, maybe in the future we can do the same for the other EX novels. It's true that there are probably already X1 videos out there on the web, but it's also true that there isn't an X1 video in my style, the Conejotako style, narrated by me, edited to a high standard, and featuring the specific gifs I have for every single character in the story. So, having said that, I'd be grateful for any support. How can you help? It's simple. Consider contributing to the goal I'll be setting up on Ko-fi. Unfortunately, Ko-fi doesn't allow me to set a goal based on a time frame. It forces me to set a specific dollar amount no matter what. So, I just put an unrealistic number. Obviously, I don't need $1,000 to cover the cost of this video, but I'm repeating this because I need a progress bar that stays active for a long period, specifically until the day I actually post the EX1 narration. If you're wondering why 3% of the goal has already been raised, it's because I announced it during a stream a few days ago on my main Spanish channel. I spent nearly 2 hours talking about all this, and some people already started chipping in. A huge thanks to Zeki and Cruzmata for being the first to contribute, with $30 in total. Let me clarify one last time for anyone claiming I'm asking for $1,000 to make this video. Please, take a clip of this and send it to them. Making the video does not cost $1,000. It costs much less. I only set it that high because Ko-fi doesn't have a time-based goal setting. I just chose a large amount so the bar wouldn't fill up while I'm still working on the EX1 edit. If you don't want to use Ko-fi and prefer to help through YouTube, that's perfectly fine. I just ask that when you support me there, you clearly indicate in a message that it's for the EX1 goal. However, please keep in mind that when you donate through the platform, if YouTube takes a cut, then taxes take their cut. And to top it all off, if you donate from an iOS device, Apple takes another cut. By the end of that chain, the amount that actually reaches me is much, much lower. Because of that, when I update the goal with the money received from YouTube, I'll be listing the final amount received and not the original amount you sent. I'm letting you know now, so there are no surprises later. If you decide to take this advice and choose not to send it through YouTube, I encourage you to use PayPal instead. I'll put my PayPal info on the screen right now. Lastly, if you're in Peru, I'd appreciate it if you used Yape for the transfer. I'll attach my moderator's Yape info. Again, remember to include a message stating the amount is for the EX1 goal, and the mod will send it over to me personally. And if you can't support us financially, don't worry. Just by watching, commenting, and sharing my videos, you're already helping the channel stay profitable. I didn't think I'd be saying this, but I'm genuinely hyped to narrate EX1. It's strange because I know there's a mountain of work ahead. I have to write dozens of pages and re-record several parts of the audio. But even so, the drive to put in the effort and try is way bigger than the tedious workload waiting for me. But that'll be all for today. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about the novel chapter or the video I'm planning. I'll be keeping an eye on the comment section. See ya!